One. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Breaking Free podcast. I'm your host, Nathan Francis. Today, very grateful, very humble to be joined by Shannon, the Somatic Energetic Coach. Shannon, welcome to my platform today. Got an interesting
Thank you.
story. Keen to hear more about it and have a deep chat into masculine, feminine, and all the beautiful things that information that's not really out there in the mainstream. So I'm looking forward to today's conversation. And Shannon, welcome to the platform.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
No, no worries at all. So what's your story? Who are you? What do you do? All the beautiful things, and we'll get this going, eh?
What's my story? Oh, we could go into that. I guess the main thing that got me here today is my journey through my 20s, which we can get into at a later date. But short story, well, long story short, I'm Shannon. I'm a somatic energetic coach, and my business is Somatic Body. I work predominantly with women. I'm shifting more into coaching with women. And the work that I do is very much in the realms of feminine and masculine energies. I work with somatic embodiment, which is a form of psychotherapy. I have a background in clinical work, hands on, so remedial massage, myotherapy. And I also have a little bit of a background in energetic work. So I do some Wim Hara massage and practitioner training. I did that, like the training for that. And then also Reiki, used to be Reiki, which I know Nathan and I have in common. We were talking
Yes.
about this the other day, so that's pretty
Yes.
cool.
Fellow Reiki master I am, and you'll be a master soon.
Yes,
So for someone that
yes,
doesn't know what somatic is, what is
yeah.
somatic?
Somatic. It's such a nuanced term, especially like a very trendy term when you
Hmm.
see it on like social media. And the word somatic, when you break it down, like scientifically, we use the word somatic when you're learning any health science, anatomy and physiology subjects. It essentially means body, like the physiology of the body. But when we're talking about somatics in psychotherapy, we're talking about using the body and anchoring into the body as a form of regulating the mind, the mental body is what I call it. The consciousness, the subconsciousness, what you really do when you're doing somatic work, no matter what it is, it could be any type of practice that gets you into your body. Essentially, it's the practice of listening to your body and going into your body. It's essentially giving your mind the back seat. And so when I learned somatic embodiment coaching, we were taught to coach people essentially. So vocal cues, guiding them. And so we're not really the ones facilitating the healing journey when it comes to somatic embodiment. We're actually watching the journey unfold for the person on the other end, on the receiving end. Similar to Reiki, right? Like we don't really have control. We're not trying to control the Reiki energy when we're working on someone with energy therapy. We kind of just let that loving vibration flow through and see what happens, see what the person's open to, and see what unfolds. And so it's very similar in that way. But with somatic training, it's, yeah, essentially about dropping into the body and using that as an anchor so that the conscious mind, the mind that tends to overthink, can take a backseat and just witness and drop into a different level of consciousness, the more unconscious levels, semi conscious, subconscious levels. And from there, we can get information that we wouldn't normally get in our day to day about ourselves. We get a deeper knowing of ourselves, just like you would with Reiki as well.
Yeah, I
That
love
goes into
that.
the unconsciousness. Yeah.
Yeah, it's very, very powerful part of the mind, and something that once you ju jump on and delve into this journey of uncovering that sort of stuff, you soon work out that there's a lot of stuff that you aren't really consciously aware of until you gain that conscious awareness. Things can really shift and change.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
Mm.
That's what happened. That was my journey through my 20s, the,
The
the
old
deepening
20s
of
journey.
consciousness. We talked about this though, like the other day about, the journey through the 20s, especially the late 20s and going through the Saturn return. You and I both figured out that we went through our Saturn return in the middle of COVID, in
Hmm.
the middle of the pandemic. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or amidst it. Yeah.
Yeah. Mine,
And it
I
really
only
did
found out the other
amplify it.
month that I would even was a Saturn return, like, for anyone out there now that's in there, it's 26, 27, it's about to start theirs, it'd be good to get that
Hmm.
information of what you're about
Yes.
to go through because, for me, my whole life got turned upside down. I know you were much the same, and it birthed
Hmm.
what we're doing now and got us to this point here. So, you can be very grateful for that time, but also you get stuck in the loop too. So, you
Yeah.
want to talk
While
more
you're
about
in it, it's not fun. right?
No.
While you're in it. In hindsight, the growth is like it's rewarding
Mm,
and it's satisfying and it's very humbling as well at the same time, to sit there and look at yourself and have humility for yourself and grace for yourself and like see how far you've come. But at the time, it's not fun.
no, no, it's not. So you did a video on your Instagram, which will be linked at the bottom. What's masculine and feminine to you? Let's get into the juicy stuff. So, if someone out there is
Yes.
listening or watching, there's a very buzz term out there, toxic
Hmm.
masculinity and all the
Yes.
things. So I'll let you take the floor.
Yeah. For me, I go off the Jungian psychology terms of feminine and masculine. So when I did my somatic embodiment coaching training, and also when I did my Womb Hara practitioner training, which we'll get into what Womb Hara is and means as well, we work with the Jungian terms. So Carl Jung's a psychologist, and he came up with the terms anima and animus. And these represent the feminine characteristics within each of us, they're archetypes. So when I speak to the words feminine and masculine, I'm talking about archetypes. In other words, characteristics that build up to a form of a character within us all, both masculine and feminine. And not only that, but can exist within both male and female. So it's kind of like speaking to the old and ancient saying of yin and yang, you know?
Hmm.
But we're looking at it more from a characteristic point of view. What energy and frequency comes with that of a feminine, and what energy and frequency comes with that of a masculine. And so that's essentially what it is when I say and mean feminine and masculine myself. That's what I'm referring to is like the yin and the yang within that dynamic duo. And I guess coming onto this podcast and doing that video that you're going to link below, it's like me wanting to broaden my horizons because I have that one perspective, that Jungian perspective, and I have that perspective having lived and embodied it as a female. But I thought it would be so interesting to hop on and have the perspective of what that is for you as a male as well. So, we're going to talk about it, but also it'd be really cool to get, I guess, your perspective of what that is. And then also, I'd be really curious to see like how that would look in relationship dynamics, like within the masculine and feminine when you're in relationship as well. I feel like that would be something really cool to talk about as we go through this as well.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Because the more I looked into it too, out there today, you have the toxic masculinity sort of program, you could say, and then men are very. I find a lot of men are being over feminized, and then it's the opposite for the women. They're being heavily masculinized, and that is obviously for a reason, and for many, many reasons. As if you want to go down that rabbit hole, there's many podcasts on this platform talking about that very topic. But what does that look like for you? So how can we go back to men being men again, not being women, and then women being women and not being, men? How does that sort of dynamic work in a modern way?
Yeah. Well, I guess that comes back to the wording of dynamic duo. Because when we think about the wording duo, it's like it's the wording that I use to replace balance. Because a lot of us, I'm not saying all of us, but when we think of the word balance, we associate that with a perfect 50-50 ratio, often. Whereas a dynamic duo means that it's something that's forever in motion within us. And also when we're in relationship. So, like, for example, if you and I were in relationship, male and female in relationship, the dynamic between us, you as a masculine being, me as a feminine being, but still having that yin and yang within, is constantly going up and down and throughout different eras of our life. And so, how can we identify when we're too far one way, too far the other? The way I
Mm.
like to think about it from what I've learned and what I've experienced is when we're too far in a certain state. For example, you explained in society, women tend to be a little too much more in their masculine and men too much more in their feminine. It's when you're in that state stagnantly, as in there's no
Yes.
dynamic, right? It's when you are stuck in that state. And so this is why it's really interesting to look at the archetypes, look at the characteristics of anima and animus, of masculine and feminine, so that because I find that's really valuable. If you can understand the characteristics of what that looks like, you can understand what it feels like and relate it to yourself to be too much in the masculine for too long, or vice versa in the feminine for too long. And I think that's where in society we've gone wrong, is like women have been working to, for example, this is one example, a masculine clock in terms of how they work. It's a Monday, 9 to 5. Every single day is the same, just like how the sun laps around in a 24-hour cycle, testosterone laps around in a 24-hour cycle for the male. Our circadian rhythms, our sleep cycles, yeah, sure. Women have that, but we also have an infradian rhythm,
Ooh.
which is our feminine cycle, the four
Yep.
phases. And that highly impacts us when we're in our reproductive years. And, now what I'm starting to see coming into this small niche, I guess, area of health and wellness that I'm in now, I'm starting to see women in this network starting to go away from that 9 to 5 job and come more into their four phases and starting to live that way, starting to live more cyclically. And so I think this is where we start to see that movement of women identifying, oh, I'm so burnt out, right? The signs start being there when we're stuck in a stagnant state of too much masculine. And this is what happened throughout my 20s too. I lived it. I lived being in that masculine state throughout my 20s. And there were little tickle, like feather tickles. I always call it the feather, the brick, and the truck. You have like the feather at first, tickles the body and goes, hey, here's a little issue in your body presenting. And then when you don't listen to that, or you don't quite fully evolve out of that, then you stay in that stagnant state still somewhat, of being too much in the masculine, not enough in the feminine. Then a brick hits you next, and you're like, oh. And if you still don't quite get it, then the truck's going to hit you, right? And so this is what happened in my 20s. And this is, I would say, like, you coming back to your question, what do we do when we're too far in one side, or what happens when we're too far in one side and not in the other? It's like the body will tell you.
Yeah.
Eventually, the body will tell you. And I feel like as a society, it's starting to happen collectively as well. The bodies are starting to tell us, you know?
Yeah, you
And
can
it's
see
the
that.
same with, yeah,
It's
I would say
prevalent.
it's the same with men. How would you describe that on your end as a male? Like, how are you experiencing that? And how have you lived that in terms of the, I guess, stagnant state of being too much in one versus the other?
Well, for me, it was pretty simple. Like a lot of people know my story and know my life through my 20s too. It was a lot of drinking and partying and stuff. But I guess I was always in the masculine state. I was never, the only parts of my life where I was weak was physically. I was physically very, very weak. I wasn't looking the way I do now, and I was very skinny. And I always loved health and fitness, but never really took it very, very seriously. But the way I was probably in my very first relationship, I was very feminized. Like I had a lot of trust issues and different things related to mummy issues and all the things growing up. So I guess you could say in a relationship setting, I was quite weak. But having delved back in that space now, a different person, you can sort of see the patterns more. It's like, oh, I'm about
Mm-hmm.
to like say do something, and it's like, oh, there's a bit of a that push pull between past and old. Not
Yeah.
past and current. So I guess in your long-winded thing for a man, it's if you do have trust issues, where does that come from? And if you have the anxious attachment stuff, well, that's also a very I'm just going to call for what it is. It's a very weak, like that's what the society wants men to be. They want men to be weak and they want men to be feminized. So if they can
Mm-hmm.
weaken the population, weaken the men, you look at the world today, that's what's going on. So it's you got to be very careful of what, just become more conscious of what you're doing, what you're saying, and also the way you are out there in the world. And that's something that I've learned a lot in the last probably 4, 6 years now. I don't
Mm-hmm.
know. I think that answers it. But
Yeah, no, it
it's like
does.
which
And the
layer of the
way
onion
of,
do you want to go down?
yeah, no, but like also exactly like everything that you've said and what I've heard from what you said, because we didn't really talk about this prior to this interview, is
No.
like your history of what that felt like for you
Mm.
going through that. When you're saying things like having trust issues and having the mother wounds and everything come up, to me, that speaks volumes to emotional intelligence and
Hmm.
emotional awareness. And when we think about the yin and the yang, it's like the man and the masculine energy within is the logic and the consciousness, and the
Correct.
feminine is the dream state, the more of the emotive body,
Mm,
the emotional body, and that emotional intelligence. And so when we start to see like that emotional stuff rising, but in an unhealthy way, there's that lack of education perhaps growing up, and so that lack of not knowing how to deal with that at first, right? And so then there's that, you can see where that missing link is in society, right? As we
mm,
had formed and grown up. It's like, why, how did I miss that? Where was that missing in my formative years, or perhaps even ancestrally down the bloodline, that education of how to move through the emotions and the feelings, in a healthy way. And especially the way a man's going to embody that and process that is going to be different to how a woman would, because you have the masculine mind and the feminine mind. They work a little differently. I would say a female and the feminine essence is more emotive, more dominant in terms of the emotional body, whereas the man is more logic. But it doesn't mean they don't both exist, And I feel like from what I've heard, it's like not having that taught, grown up. It's like actually one of the best examples that's coming to mind right now is I had a friend, a teacher, and I know you come from a teaching background, so you might appreciate this. And she was saying to me, the one thing when we were talking about masculine and feminine that she noticed is like when we were taught as teachers in primary school, we were taught to ask the boys, what are you going to do about that? And when there was a conflict at school, we were taught to ask the girls, how do you feel about that? So there was already that ingrained, at least from her perspective and her story, of like teaching the girls only how to look into their emotions and the guys only how to do the action. And there's value in that too, don't get me wrong. Like the man wants to know what the purpose is, it wants to know where the lead is, how to take the lead. And then same with the woman. The woman wants to be in touch with her emotions. But where was that, balance of learning both for male and female,
mm.
Because if we can embody our logic and harness our logic as a female, and become more clear in our mindset, then we can better clearly see our emotions and live into our feminine. And then vice versa with the men, right? If we can better understand our emotions, we can move past and process that and live fully in our masculine, I would say,
Yeah,
right?
agreed. And
Yeah.
men aren't like there's this generational program of asking for help's weak, showing emotions weak, crying's weak amongst my dad's age group and older. There's that also hovering in the background of the unconscious mind of a lot of men out there is, but a lot of people out there in the space now are breaking that. I did a video which I think you saw. I put up on my story there during the week. I did a video last year of me just crying, just going, "This is the most
Yeah.
powerful video I'll ever do." I'm just got tears in my eyes streaming down my face. It's like we need more men stepping into that feeling space and being able to feel because
Yeah.
we're not getting asked those questions like what your teacher friend was asking. Like we need to ask the men those questions. We should be
Yeah.
asking men, how does it feel? And then what are you going to do about it? Like you're feeling,
Hmm.
and then you're going to action the, okay, this is the problem. I'm feeling a certain way. This is the action to fix the
Yes.
problem.
Yeah.
We're
Yeah.
getting a little bit in, like, I feel like both of those questions need to be asked to a man or to a little boy.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%.
Mm,
And I think it's important to have follow through. And this is where having anima and animus, so having both masculine and feminine in both genders, is important,
mm,
you know? But it's like learning how to embody that as a male or a female.
correct.
There wasn't that lived experience growing up, at least not in our generation, right? And I don't believe it was prior either.
I don't think it is
So,
now either.
yeah, yeah. But the awareness is there now. The awareness is
Correct.
evolving and slowly coming into collective. And that's what I'm starting to see again in my niche network of people, the women starting to step away from that 9 to 5, Monday to 5, and go more into, okay, well, here's my bleed phase, like my menstrual phase. I'm going to have 5 whole days off. And then I might work more days in my ovulation, in my peak phase, where I'm more in my masculine and have more energy based on chemistry as well. So,
Mm,
like, all aligns. And that's where you're slowly starting to see that evolve. But it's still very new, and it does need more attention. You're right, and like even like what you said, going through your Saturn return, having known that knowledge prior to, would have been helpful.
Mm.
It would have made the journey a little bit smoother. And it's not that like you weren't meant to go through that journey the way you did, but having the knowledge and having the support. And I guess we could go into that as well, right? Is like talking about brotherhood and sisterhood. That's something that's been coming up even for me as well, is like healing the brother wound for men and healing the sister wound for women in community and society. And it comes down to like what you did. You mentioned that you showed a video of you crying this week, and I loved it. I found it so inspiring, and I didn't see that as weak. You say men have a fear of being seen as weak if they show emotional vulnerability, but to someone like myself who has that, I guess, deeper awareness of the archetypes, the anima, the animus, I see that and I think that's fire. That's awesome. Like that was so inspiring to see that. And like if you can get that out there, you can inspire men, you
Mm.
know, be a leader, and that's where it's like, okay, crying isn't actually a bad thing or a shameful thing for a man to do. It's actually quite inspiring. And if you can bring that into brotherhood, I'm not saying sit in a circle for 24 hours and cry your eyes out until like you feel like a woman and it's degrading, but to bring that into brotherhood and then, okay, what are we going to do about that now? We've processed, it's time to come out, and again, that's the opposite example of being stuck too much in the feminine, right? You go too much into the feminine that you kind of feel stuck in it and maybe a bit lost in it and feel
Yep.
dissociated and then stay in that. And that's like where you could even speak to the words, depression versus anxiety. You stuck in this kind of non-moving depressed state, but also in this kind of like dreamtime state, because the feminine is the dreamtime state. But it's like having the men and the brotherhood is what brings you back out,
Mm. And
the
having that
action-based, the evidence
vulnerability
stuff.
too, being vulnerable to be able to share.
There's a power.
Yeah, there is. There's a power in being able to share the feeling and
Mm,
feeling the feeling. A lot of men will say, "Oh, I'm feeling a certain way. I can't quite put my finger on it." And I know that's a conversation I've had a lot too. And something that is a solution to that is when I was going through and trying to understand feelings and all that, and being able to feel anger and all they'll say negative emotions, right? I think we're positive and negative. And for me, it was just journaling, just writing down. So there was no person, it was just me, myself. And then I was able to read my writing and go, well, here we go. Like that's helping me make sense of how I'm feeling. Then I was able to communicate and express that because I'd already expressed and communicated with myself on paper. I feel like that's a really important solution because for me, it was just like I wasn't able to tell you how I'm feeling, but if I could write you a letter, I'll tell you how I'm feeling.
mhm. Yeah. And
You know what I
that's
mean?
actually a form of a somatic practice because it's kinesthetic.
Yeah.
It's not just visual, it's kinesthetic. You're physically with your body, writing it down, putting it into physical form. Your emotions, your thoughts, your feelings, the subconsciousness, the semi consciousness.
Mm.
And that's like, I would say, because that adds that bit of doing, that bit of physical body and action taking, that would be like a really good example of bringing in and combining the doing with the being, the masculine with the feminine. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a very powerful exercise, and it's one that I recommend men do when they're struggling to communicate with that to someone. It's just writing it down, and then you'll be able to speak it as you go because it's crystal clear to you.
It's funny, I never thought about that. I guess the reputation of, a man journaling. I never thought about how that can look weak or feminine from a male perspective. Like growing up, like if I think about my teen years and going through high school, girls would journal all the time and like, oh, here's my diary and mum don't touch my diary. But like you wouldn't hear about guys talking about journaling,
Nah,
Not me.
I only started journaling in the last oh, 3 years.
Yeah.
Like my laptop right now is sitting on top of my journal so that I'm a bit more higher up on the camera. But
Mm,
like I've got like three journals, and at the end of each journal, when I get to the last page, I burn it,
mm.
reread it, see how far I've come, burn it, see you later, new one.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, there's a power in that too. So that's another example of like letting go and coming out of the feminine. There's a surrender and a release, which is a very feminine characteristic.
Hmm.
And then there's the moving on, the movement, which is the masculine. So it's like perfect. You're
Mm.
living it. You're coming into that. That's awesome. But I guess what's interesting is witnessing all these new perspectives, like the journal thing I hadn't even thought about. Well, am I allowed to ask questions as well?
Yeah, it
I
doesn't
know it's
worry
like you're
me.
interviewing me.
Yeah, it doesn't worry me.
What would you say is the standout experience for you through teenhood that would speak to, I guess, having a lack of masculinity or masculine support, even?
You have to look to the father, don't you?
Mm-hmm.
Or male role models that I had in my life at that period of
Mm-hmm.
time. The only male role model I had in that period of time was my grandfather. He taught me all the life skills, building, and he'd take me out fishing and all those things. And he passed away in 2011. So I guess he was probably the one that showed me those like life skills because
Mm-hmm.
my dad did the best he could with what he had. He taught me stuff too, but he didn't teach me what my grandfather taught me.
Mm-hmm.
If that
The
makes sense.
hands-on stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And
And I feel
I,
like we're losing that, right? The hands-on stuff. People are
yeah,
doing more
it's not in the
today's.
education
Yeah.
system anymore.
Mm-hmm.
You have to actually sign up to you got to pick it as an elective, right? Well, it shouldn't even be an elective. It should be a bloody uh, com hate that word compulsory, but a compulsory subject that you must be able to. If I could get in the education system and revamp the whole thing, I would because it is a fucking shit show. I'm just gonna kind of openly admit that, and people know my stance on that. So, but yeah, but it's like those proper life skills, I feel
Mm-hmm.
like that's lacking inside a lot of our
Education.
systems. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And our kids are coming out of school useless and our men are too.
Mm-hmm.
Our women are as well. It's just if we
Mm-hmm.
could revamp that system one day, I reckon one day we will turn that ship around and I'm looking forward to that day. But for me, my grandfather taught me things, my dad showed me things in his way. But I had to go on my own journey and reparent myself. I had to go back to that
Mm-hmm.
teenage version of me and look him in the eye and say, "Oh, brother, I've got you. I forgive you." I had a lot of guilt and shame around the younger versions of me, and I went back to them and said, "Look, I've got you now. I'll
Yeah.
reparent you. I'll show you the way.
Yeah.
Follow me. I'll pick you up."
Yeah.
There's a pinned photo of me in a nightclub, Shan, on my top of my Instagram page, where I just went
I
back
saw
to that
that.
dude drunk and just picked him up and said, "Brother, I've got you. This lifestyle is going to be your comeback story." There's power
That's
in that
big.
for any young man. There's
Yeah.
power in going back to those younger versions of you. My mum's Facebook's
Yeah.
awesome. Find those older photos of you, sit and stare at that photo,
Mm-hmm.
look that person of you in the eye and feel all the
Mm-hmm.
feelings of in that moment, prior to that moment, after that moment, and just feel it.
Yeah. That's big. That's
Yeah,
big.
it's always big for me when I do it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Hearing that like the education system from your perspective has such a big role in our, formative years, our teen years. It's just something that is eye-opening for me as well.
I'm very passionate about it, Shan. If you get me
Yeah.
started, I may not stop.
Because, I have, considered father wound, mother wound, ancestral ties. I'm really big on looking at the bloodline and what has been passed down. But looking at societal, teachings and how we were taught through education is something that I hadn't even thought to consider as well. And it's silly to not consider that when you think about the fact that in our developmental years, we spend a lot of our time at school, like a lot
Yeah.
of our waking hours.
Especially if you look at the 0 to 9 age bracket, it's a very important time of a child's life. It
Mm,
shapes their future. That's where you
hmm.
pick up, you're in that theta brainwave state from 0 to 9. You're picking up on all your psychological programs,
Yeah,
and your role models in ancient times was your tribe. It was your
yeah,
parents, friends of parents, and the tribe. Now it's not your parents. They've removed the parents, and it's now teachers and it's people on the screen like Sabrina Carpenter and Miley Cyrus come to mind. They're looking at these sex people like it's like if you're a kid now, You're
mental
away from
too.
mum and dad. You're away from mum and dad for 8, 9 hours, sometimes
Yeah.
12 hours a day. You're getting raised by people that aren't in your tribe. You're getting raised by the system.
Yeah.
That's the dangerous part. And 0 to 9's a very significant age in the development of a
Mhm.
child. And, a lot of the work I've done and unlearned is from that 0 to 9 age bracket where I was inside that school system.
Yeah. Yeah. And even if you think about like coming back to, you were saying being inside that school system and being away from the parents, like in your formative years, you can also think to not being around the grandparents at that age too, because a lot of people are also taking away the grandparents, at least in Western society. They go into homes.
Correct?
You're not around that. You had the opportunity of growing up with your granddad. I had the opportunity of growing up with my grandmother.
Both my
She lived with
grandfathers,
us.
actually.
There
They're
you
here
go.
now in spirit.
But not everyone in, especially in the Western world, has that. And I think because I live in, no one knows on the podcast right now unless they know me personally, but I live in Spain right now. And the beauty in a lot of European cultures is it's so much more family oriented.
Yep.
And even learning the Spanish culture, the things that I've come to really appreciate in terms of the like camaraderie in family and society is even in their language, you have the masculine and feminine,
Mm,
you know? Like all the words are masculine and feminine in the Spanish and in most of the Latin derives, you've got like the French has feminine and masculine, same with the Italian. But like there's literally the days of the week, for example, in Spanish. You've got Monday is lunes, lunes for the moon. It's
mm,
that feminine day. And then you've got Sunday, Sunday in English, of course. But yeah, it's just so interesting to me how much of the culture here in Europe it does differ to how you and I grew up in Australia,
mm.
and how much more of a role, it's not much more, but still that much more of a role of having grandparents around because they're not put into homes, they stay with the family, you know, and also having more out of school activities. We have neighbors that have family come over like clockwork every single weekend,
I love
and
that.
other neighbors who have friends that come over every single weekend.
You look at the Australian culture and,
Yeah.
American too, like New Zealand, Commonwealth countries, that sort of setup is no one knows their neighbours around here. I've moved from Victoria, sort of knew mine. Couldn't tell you who lived three doors down, could tell you who lived next
Yeah.
door, either side, across the road. You know, there's that as well. Like I live
Hmm.
here now in Sunshine Coast. I know who my neighbours are next door. Couldn't tell you who. I'm just looking out at my window now. Couldn't tell you who lives in the three houses here.
Mm.
Couldn't. I don't know their names. I
Yeah.
say good day to them if they're
Yeah.
out, but it's like we don't even know our neighbours anymore. Like big one.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think we can put that down to technology too. Like it's had a lot of advances for us. You and I are using technology right now thanks to the advances of it. But then also there's the downside to that, you know.
Yeah.
It's it takes up a lot of our time and not in a good way.
Yep.
Which is why you'll have seen a couple of weeks back I had a 4-day hiatus. And even currently, in probably poor timing, I'm also having a social media detox right now while we're meeting up for this podcast. Takes you away from the distractions so you can come back into your body. And not
Yeah.
only that, but so you can have some quality time with people. Because, like, you need to sit with your
Yes.
boredom. Sit with your boredom and see what comes up. What do you actually want to do? You know, I sat with my boredom yesterday and I had that fight, that internal fight between the inner masculine and feminine, wanting to do, wanting to perform, want to be there for someone. But it's like sometimes it's good to have a break from that, especially what you see with women is the burnout from doing the 9 to 5, constantly pushing through the cramps, pushing through the fact that you're tired because you're losing blood, for example, once a month. Those particular moments, you push through that, but it's not always good to push through it, and the body eventually will tell you that it's not good, you know? And so it is good to come back and listen to the body to get rid of the distractions and figure out what it is that you actually want to do. And I feel like when a lot of people do this, we realize that we're losing the connection. the connection to brotherhood and sisterhood. And not only that, but we're losing that inner connection, that vulnerability, and then the power within processing, having the courage to process that vulnerability and what's coming up, you know,
Hmm.
exactly like what you spoke to. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's that connection to self and it's that
Hmm.
quality time. You know, you look back, I talk a lot about ancient times, but there was none of this shit around. So they connected with each other. There was that
Hmm.
tribal sort of village raising children. There was, it's like we can go back to that in a modern way.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
you look at, I just thinking about what you said before, the social media detox thing too. And, sitting with that bored version of me, like I was bored an hour ago before this jumped on. That's why I messaged and said I was going on early. But I was thinking back, it's like I could have journaled, I could have done something else. It said I just sat here and just was like, yeah, it's like I felt like I wasted that last hour, just even in the last hour. There you go. Bit of vulnerability there, but it's like,
Yeah.
what else could I be doing?
Yeah. I think that's a part of the vulnerability though, right? Is like admitting your humanness
Mm,
and your imperfection.
yeah,
You know, as
it's a work
far
in
as
progress.
you and I and everyone has come in, you know, the health and wellness coaching industry, we've all had like our stories and our developments, but we're still human.
Mm,
You know, I've seen people in the industry get on their high horse. Like I had this, I still couldn't believe this one email from this woman, and she's like, "I'm a Reiki practitioner. I don't get burnt out. I don't know why you're reaching out to me about joining an event with you. And if you're a real Reiki practitioner, you wouldn't get burnt out either." And I was like, "What?" To me, I was like, "Whoa, there's no, there's no room there for human error, for humanness.
mm,
There's no grace there." It's like that was like, whoa. Because for me, it's like you need to be able to have grace for yourself to stumble and fall. Because if you don't, there comes the shame, and the shame is what holds us back. You know,
yep.
I know we dabbled into, sorry, I know you and Louisa, who you had on earlier, dabbled into like shame, but it holds you back. And it's a part of that is suppressing that emotion, you know, suppressing that vulnerability.
Mm.
Yeah.
Very interesting email because a lot of people in the health and wellness space too do jump up on that, but they're in that love and light frequency.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like,
It's like they're
you know,
too
you
far in the
talked
love
about.
and light where you got to balance it out,
Mhm.
where that's the
Yeah,
polarity, where aspects of
exactly.
light and dark, aspects of
Yeah.
masculine, feminine. It's balancing that out.
Hmm.
And
Yeah,
yeah, I look at that email and I just go, well, you know what, it's probably not the person for you anyway.
exactly. Exactly. And that's exactly what I thought of. I was like, oh, thank gosh, she didn't join anyway.
Yeah. So,
um, but yeah, it's you're exactly right. And like when you speak about, you know, the light and the dark, even when you think about how, and this is a really cool concept, coming back to the masculine and feminine within. You've got the astrology, right? You've got the sun influencing us, and it cycles our earth on a 24-hour cycle, just
correct.
like a male's reproductive cycle of testosterone. It wakes up with full storage after being restored, if you've had a good sleep,
Yep.
of
Should wake up with
testosterone.
an erection,
It
boys.
slowly, exactly, if you have a healthy, functional amount of testosterone, right? And then it slowly depletes over the day, restores overnight. That's your 24-hour cycle,
Correct.
representing that of the light and that of the moon, that of the fire frequency, the energy, the momentum, the yang. And then you have the yin. And you think about the moon and how that interacts with our earth. It has 4 phases within a month, just like the female reproductive cycle. And not only that, but the sun, the moon comes out and illuminates throughout the nighttime. This is our darkness. So you could even look at the sun and the moon as our light and darkness as well. And when you think about the feminine, it's like the unconsciousness and the dream time. The masculine is bringing that forth into fruition, into embodiment, and into the light, you know, bringing that unconsciousness into the light. And so there's that cool, again, dynamic. Not so much like there is a polarity in the sense that they're contrasting one another, but they also complement one another, you know,
Mm.
going into that vulnerability, into the shadow, into those parts that we shame, but then also coming out of that, you know, without like having the strength to come out of that really is what where the masculine comes in.
Yeah,
Yeah.
having the strength to come out, not staying in it and just
Yes. Yeah.
letting it fester and all the things. Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, we
Yeah.
could also speak to like the other example of intention setting, but then not
Mm.
embodying that into manifestation. I think there's a big misunderstanding of what manifesting is. And I've seen people speak up more and more about it, especially this year, is like manifesting isn't just sitting there dreaming up your dream and then like calling universe to
Hmm.
bring it for you,
I
you
love
know?
this.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
That's intention setting. That's intention setting. That's not
Yeah,
actually
correct.
manifesting. That's intention setting. I'm setting my intentions to this goal, this dream, this desire. But then manifesting is actually starting to embody it as well.
Yeah.
Plan it, do those, and take action, you
That's what I was about to say.
know? Yeah.
Yeah, like a lot of people will go and I'm going to raise you one here. It's like a game of poker now. I'm just going to raise you a chip. It's
Yeah.
like the people that go and see psychics, right? They'll go and see a
Hmm.
psychic. They want some guidance of their future, right? They'll go, I see you with XYZ. In I've learned to never give timelines because then people attach to the timeline. This is where people get caught up. They'll go, I see
Mm-hmm.
you with XYZ, whatever it is, in 3 months. 3 months will come around. Person will go, right, 3 months come around, where's XYZ? And then they'll get the resentment. Then they'll get da 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 da. And then a few months down the road, they'll go, that fucking psychic told me XYZ was going to happen. And it didn't fucking happen. It's like, look in the mirror, whoever says that.
Yeah.
Did you change?
Yeah.
Did you put yourself in positions to get XYZ?
Hmm.
Did you take
Did you
action to get
choose that?
XYZ?
Yeah.
Did you envision that XYZ? Did you embody that version that is with XYZ?
Hmm.
Don't just
Yeah.
blame the psychic. Have a
Yeah.
look in the mirror and blame yourself. I got caught up in that trap too. I attached to timelines and
Yeah.
all those sort of things. And, I say that because I was that. Now
Yeah.
it's like, well, in school we get taught manifestation too, Shan. We only get taught a little bit. It's like you set a
Mm.
goal. Your goal might be I just want to learn how to read. So then you achieve that
Hmm.
goal. Awesome. You took action, you practiced, you did the thing. But where we get caught up and lost is we I was trying to think of how, and another example is we only get taught to a point and we get stuck in, oh, we're not there yet. Or we get stuck in, oh, I haven't
Hmm.
achieved it yet.
Hmm.
Or you give yourself a timeline, you want X, Y, Z in 12 months, and 12 months rolls around and you're sort of still, probably still on the path to X, Y, Z, but you haven't got it yet. And
Hmm.
I used to set goals in
Yeah.
6 to 12 months and get stuck. But it's like, we'll eventually achieve that goal through patience, resilience, and discipline, but also through envisioning what that looks like. But then also, as you said,
Yeah.
get the feelings going, get all that thing going, but then take action.
Yeah.
For me, it's like I want a partner in my life. This time last year, I had a very beautiful 17-year-old client of mine turn the tables on me. He's like, "How's your love life going?" I said, "Oh yeah, it's." He's like, "Well, you're a good-looking young guy. Put yourself out there." It's like he's like, "You're not going to meet anyone on it." He's like, "You're not going to meet anyone laying in bed meditating." And I'm like, "Oh, I need to
Yeah.
hear that." It's
Yeah.
like it's so true.
Yeah.
You can
Yeah.
envision and dream all you want, but you got to put yourself in those spaces to meet those people.
Hmm. Hmm.
So
Yeah.
yeah, that's like
And
a
I
personal
feel like,
example of that.
yeah,
Yeah,
I feel like everyone who comes out of that system, we were talking about coming out of that schooling system where we weren't really taught these things, how to feel into the vulnerability and then to move from that space. But I feel like everyone who starts to delve into that journey, you could call it spiritual development or self development. I feel like everyone goes through that phase,
yeah.
that phase of realizing, ah, I still have choice in this. It's like almost like they go too far the other way. Like, oh, the collective's got my back, the universe has got my back. That's not untrue, but it's like you've also got your back. You know,
Mm,
we go through that phase. I think the phase that I would describe, at least for how I experienced it, was like putting mentors, whether it's in the self development
here we
space
go.
or spiritual space, on a pedestal
Yeah, pedestaling
and
people.
giving away part of my power. You
Yep.
know, we've all been through that phase for
Mm-hmm.
those of us who have gone through, and I know Louisa speaks to this as well,
Mm,
going through that spiritual community or that self development community. And, you can nowadays, in hindsight, like looking back, I can now spot the people, for
same.
example, the lady who emailed me, who are on their pedestal and they're out to leech and seek power,
Mm, yeah.
from others.
it's like an energy sort of,
Yeah.
yeah, it's like an energy of like where you're handing your power away. It's like
Mhm.
I always say to people that say that to me, I'm like, well, pedestal yourself. Yes, that could be deemed as arrogant and selfish and ego, but it's like pedestal yourself. Put yourself on the
Mm.
pedestal.
Hmm.
Don't put George down the road on the pedestal. Put yourself on there. And it's
At the end of the
like,
day, we are the only ones responsible for the
yeah. And a
choices that
lot of
we
the
can
young
make.
people of today are loving and idolizing Taylor Swift and Sabrina Carpenter and Miley Cyrus and all these bloody external people. It's like, well, idolize yourself.
Yeah.
Who's your
Yeah.
idol? You know, fairly, I'm like 85% sure from my memory, which I'm going to go check this now. I'm going to get my mum to check it.
Yeah.
I'm fairly sure that when I was in year 10, we did like a profile of ourselves and had it on our, like our classroom window. I swear I said I was my own idol. I was like, oh,
You were
me.
already there
Who do you idol?
unconsciously.
Who do you idol? Me.
That was awesome. You were already there. Yeah.
I'm fairly
And I
sure I
say
did that.
unconsciously as in like no programming taught you to say that. That's
Nah,
you know what I mean? Like
nah.
that was already innate
Everyone said AFL
and a part
players
of you.
and, athletes
Yeah.
and celebrities. And I was like, me.
I mean, even I did. Even I, like, I think back to primary school and it was a ballerina, literally.
Mm.
I want to be a ballerina. And then it was like, I want to be Shania Twain. I want to be a singer.
Yeah, should
I
I
literally
play?
had a Shania Twain, I literally had a Shania Twain party when I was like 7. My
I
mum took
loved
me to
I
this.
loved James Hird in primary school, the Essendon football. He was like my hero.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
Warney and Gilly and all the cricketers that were like
Hmm.
that
Hmm.
generation of cricketers was great too. But then I know I sort of got to like that teenage years and I was like, you know what? Guess I just had that sort of,
Yeah.
yeah.
And that's such a cool out of the box way to think when you're put in a environment that's taught you to do otherwise.
Yeah.
Like that's such a like cool going against the grain attitude to have and thinking outside the box too. Because
Yeah,
I
I
can say like
guess
when I was in high school, I was like, cool, it's good to have a mentor. That's what I was taught. I'm gonna have a mentor. But not once was I taught, but you also need to have your own back and look up to yourself, your future version, and believe in that, believe in
uh,
yourself, put yourself up there.
beautiful
Yeah,
tip
we
for
went,
people. Shannon,
yeah,
there's a beautiful tip for people too, is to, if there's something that you aspire to be or something that you inspire or aspire to be a different version of you, something I always say is that version of you already exists. So it's like
mm-hmm,
meeting that person, walking up to them and what do they feel like? What do they look like? A
mm-hmm,
personal example is I've walked up to the version of me that has the family and is building the legacy and is, in that sort of environment. It's like, well, I want to surround myself with people that are in that environment right now so I can
mm-hmm,
be around them and learn from them.
yeah,
Then also walk up to that version of me that's living it because that person exists. In time, it
yeah,
exists. It's a version of me that's there. It's like, how can I
yeah.
embody that now?
And it's something you can control, right? Like if you're looking up to a mentor, say you've mentioned Sabrina Carpenter, Miley Cyrus, they're not with you in reality. Like they're real. I'm not saying they're not real, but they're not with
Mm,
you in your real
I
world,
like
your
a good
real
conspiracy
time
theory.
timeline, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
They're not there with you in your timeline, in your reality, in your day to day. You
No,
are,
no,
right? So what are you going to do about it
correct.
to embody that? And also, are you wanting to embody them? Or are you wanting to take that inspiration, embody it in a way that's authentic to you? And that's where really learning about the characteristics of the masculine and feminine within, learning about how to be vulnerable, learning
Yep.
how to process things, and then to move through in your own way. That's like it's so important. Come back to yourself. Don't give away your power. And also having those healthy communities. We were saying we were lacking that growing up. And I feel like we're still lacking that because of, technology, which, I love technology in some ways, but it's like we need to get back into the brotherhood and the sisterhood dynamics as well. You know,
Yep.
having real life people around us who can remind us who we are and also inspire us and get us to think differently and, take us away from the illusion of what's out there on social media.
And surround ourselves with
Yeah.
people that tell us what we need to hear, not what we want to hear too. People that are gonna give you that little kick
Yes.
up the arse to grow.
Yes, that's a part of the healthy, right? A part of the healthy environment is
Mm.
like not someone who's just going to enable what's already happening,
Yeah, love that. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
I
if
feel like in
it's
sisterhood, that's something that is an issue, like coming from a female perspective of like
mm,
sisterhood versus brotherhood, is like with brotherhood, there's the brother wound of not being accepted and not given a purpose in a crowd of brotherhood. With the woman, it's like with the sisterhood, it's the sister wound of comparison, things being unsaid, the passive aggressiveness. And like, there's not that, there's that tall poppy syndrome. I don't know if it's the same in brotherhood, but in womanhood, there's like almost this like jealousy, this competition. And you
it would
think back to
exist.
like, yeah, and you think back to like, 100 years ago or 200 years ago, where the woman really did had to compete for the man, for the household, for the security of
Yeah, and the
having a
men
house
had to
because they
pursue
weren't
and
allowed to work
chase.
much. Exactly. Yeah.
Mm,
So there was that competition, you know.
yeah,
And with women, it's like we need to break down that wound, that sister wound of the competition and the comparison, and start to become each other's cheerleaders.
mm,
And I feel like that's the same with brotherhood. It's like we need to, yes, be men, yes, give purpose, but also hold each other in places of vulnerability and not shame that, right? Would you say that's,
100%. Yeah, 100%. And
yeah.
speaking of vulnerability and being a really authentic podcast, I need to pause this because I need to go to the toilet. Yeah, it's just had to duck to the toilet. So we're back. So with the vulnerability thing too, it's important for not only men but women to be vulnerable to create that safe space. It's something I've
Mhm.
put into practice in the last few months is creating that safe space and what that looks like. Can be different for
Well,
everyone, but
this,
it's what's your take?
yeah. Well, this is where I was like wanting to go, I guess.
I
Next,
knew it.
I'm curious to know is like in terms of dynamic of male and female, whether it's in loving relationship or even just like friendship or even mother father dynamic, or son and daughter,
Mm,
with mother and father, is like, what is it that a male can get from like a male from a female, and what can a female get from a male? And I've heard the basic examples of, a man's place with a woman is that he provides safety, and that's the purpose. That what he gets out of that is the purpose. And then with a woman is she gets the safety.
mm.
And from that, she also has her own sense of purpose and providing in a different way. It's like that balance of providing a certain thing and then gaining a sense of safety. But in that, with men, like you mentioned that you've envisioned your future and how you want to build your future, and you've seen your future partner, your future family. I'm curious now to know what is, if there was just one thing, I know it's not one thing, but if there was just one thing that you could imagine getting from, a future partner, what would that be? Does that speak along the lines of vulnerability or a form of maybe safety or her providing a sense of purpose for you? Like if there was just one thing or one, even a few things, what would that be for you being male in relationship with a
Good
female?
question. I guess
Yeah.
nurturing in a sense too.
Yeah.
That nurturing, uh, that loving nurturing, and then also the fire of get off your ass and do something if I'm sort of stagnating a little bit, you know.
Yeah.
That's sort of like two sort of like surface level things, but it's also just that I guess it is probably those two things, hey. And then it's also that
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, they're probably the two that come to mind. They're the only two I can think of right now, but it's also
Yeah.
it's like that safety to be vulnerable with each other as well.
Yeah. 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 This is something I was so curious about it too, because this is something I've heard in theory. And I've been in relationship with my partner for 6 years now. And it's something that I've seen form in my relationship too. With my partner, he grew up with a single mum. Well, not a single mum, sorry, but he grew up predominantly with his mother and with his sister. So he grew up around women, and he grew up around that environment of holding space for women,
Oh,
the emotional safety. So that was there immediately in the relationship. But in terms of him being able to feel safe in space for his vulnerabilities, that took time. Emotional intelligence is still building for him. When we first started dating, I would be like, how are you feeling? And his response would usually be something along the lines of, I feel stressed, I feel tired. I'm like, okay, tired's a symptom, it's not an emotion. Like, how are you feeling? Do you have an emotion? He couldn't name an emotion. He had to go through, it was really cute when he finally, like, when the cogs ticked over and he kind of clicked, he was like, oh, okay, I'm looking up emotional intelligence now. And I'm like, he got out his emotional wheel and he started looking at emotional words that he could relate to with the colors and everything. Like that wasn't there for him because he grew up with predominantly a single mum and a sister, and he immediately stepped into the provider role, right? And so, where was that emotional capacity for him? He didn't have that. We had to grow into that as a couple. You know, I wanted to provide that for him. That was my purpose in providing as a woman. I want to provide that space for him. And then for him, it was like so easy for him to just step in and provide emotional safety for me, a space of emotional safety, and as well as physical security. That's something big for a woman is having that physical security, feeling like they're physically safe with their man in their home or their living quarters.
Mm.
But having that emotional intelligence and vulnerability was something we both had to grow into together over the like 6 years. And it's still developing. And I would say like, the thing I've had to learn on the other end of that, not only has he had to learn emotional intelligence and becoming more aware of his vulnerabilities and his emotions, is like, how do I hold space for someone who's still learning, you know, learning what it is that he needs to feel safe as well as an individual. There's that dynamic in relationships that just makes me so curious having experienced that with my long-term partner now. And I guess that's why I'm like, I want to hear this from another dude. Like, how is it that they want to be held, you know? But then, still in the same way, like you said, get up off your ass, be a man, you know?
Yeah.
And not like in a bad way. I'm not saying be a man, there's all this pressure for you to be a man and not be vulnerable. But, like, there's the balance.
Mm.
And with my partner, it's good because there's been moments where I've done that. I'm like, be honest, be open, just show up. And if you say you're going to do it, you do it. And he goes, oh, okay. He responds so well to that. It's like that masculine comes out.
Mm.
And it's so nice to see that. But then there's also these parts where he's like, oh, you're right. I need to slow down in order to notice my unconscious energies. He's a web developer. So he's constantly on technology, constantly without that space in his real time timeline and constantly in screens. And so this is how I hold space for him now is I show up and I go, hey, time for a walk, you know, time for a break. And then you see him drop in. He's like, let's go for a walk to the bunny beach. We call it the bunny beach. There's a beach here that has a bunch of wild bunnies and wild boar and it's got this beautiful boardwalk. And the whole time he's there, he's in his body and he's out and he's looking for bunnies. And he
Yeah.
makes it a game,
Yeah.
It's like, how many can we spot today? But it's just great to see that. And then from there, it's like, okay, I feel this way, I feel that way. It's not just I feel stressed or I feel tired,
Mm.
you know?
Yeah.
It happens. It's like learning to provide and have space for safety on both receiving ends is what I'm getting out of having this conversation with you from what you shared as well. I think prior to this conversation, I thought, okay, the man needs the purpose. He needs to be the provider, the protector, and the woman needs to be the space holder for emotions. But it's like, that's not actually the case. It's like we both need both, there's anima and animus. So it's pretty cool.
There's a good book, David. I think it's David Dieter. The Way of the
Mm.
What's it called? The Way of the Spiritual Man or something. It's a book I read not that long ago, actually. I had it on audiobook. I'm pretty sure it's The Way of the Spiritual. No, The Way of. I'm just gonna. What's it called? The
I'm
Way.
writing it down, and there's like going to be a few cross lines getting crossed out.
Oh,
Yep,
The
yep,
Way of the
got it.
Superior Man.
Superior man.
It's a
Okay.
beautiful read. I recommend any man read that book by David Dieter,
Yeah.
Deida. I just did a Google live on the podcast, so yeah, so that's a really good book to
Yeah.
read. I had that through my ears back in August.
Yep.
That's a really good book. It's the mental, emotional, physical, and
Mm.
sexual. Very
Mm.
important.
Yeah, I've seen you post stuff about this, and I love this topic. Is like The over sexualized, is that how you would term it? The over sexualized man. I want to
Yep.
speak more on this. Can we
Because
talk
I
about
was the
this?
over
This is
sexualized
something I want
man,
to
so I can
explore.
speak about it.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Let's go. Let's go.
Where do you want to start?
Talk to me about
Mine
it.
started with porn.
Yeah.
I talk a lot about it. I was
How old?
8 years old. I had a buddy down the road
Oh,
say, "Come around and watch this," and get those feelings down
wow.
there, and you're off, and you're like, "Oh
Hmm.
shit," and then it's like, well, that's what for a long time I thought sex was, connection was, having a huge dick and all the things. It's like, oh, I don't have that, so you already have that shame over, you're watching that thing on
Mm.
the screen, you look down, you're like, I don't have a size, I don't have anything
The
that big.
comparison.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. You start comparing yourself unconsciously to the what you're seeing, and
Hmm. Hmm.
I talk a lot about the mental gym in my content.
Hmm.
My repetitive content of what I surrounded myself with. What I watched on the screen was porn. I had nearly 20 years of that
Hmm.
repetition of content was porn
Hmm.
through my eyes, ears. Became a habit every morning, every night, and
Hmm.
to break that habit, it's like we got to insert something new. So of a morning, it's like meditation, breath work, go to the gym, lift weights. Of a
Wow.
nighttime, it's
Yeah.
meditation, breath work, stretching, slow down.
Yeah.
And over time, it's
And this is,
worked. I've
yeah.
relapsed. I've relapsed countless
Yeah.
times,
Yeah.
but you know, it's under control now because it's like, well, I've taken back the reps. It's like I'm not putting
Yeah.
in sex all the time.
And I think that also speaks to sensuality versus sexuality.
Have you heard of semen retention?
So, yes, I have.
Mm,
Sorry, I just took me a while to register the words you use. Semen
mm,
retention. Yes, I have
yeah.
heard of that. I actually listened to a podcast. Again, it was Melissa Ambrosini. She's a lady up the coast who does that. And she interviewed a guy who was a specialist, like a male coach around the realms of reproductive, specializing in reproduction. And he talked about that. And he did I don't think it's necessarily healthy to do it for too long, you
No.
know, but he did, I think it was up to something around the realms of 30 or 40 days
Yeah, I'm
once,
not. I've
and then
done.
realized, okay, maybe not that long, but
I've
like,
done. I've done
yeah,
longer than that.
yeah,
I've
yeah.
done up to 90
Wow.
days, and you really do get that
Wow.
energy going. And something
Yeah.
that I've adapted into that practice now is qigong
Yeah.
to move
I
that
saw
energy
that.
through the body. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
for me, my
And this is
longest
where
has been.
yeah,
Right.
this is where you balance the sensuality with the sexuality, right?
Yeah.
Coming into your bodily senses is just as important as coming into the raw carnal action of sex, you
Hmm.
know, because we have the action and the sexuality, which is the act of sex, and then you have the lived experience, the internal experience of sensuality within that act. And this is where you see the masculine and feminine within, right?
Hmm.
For you, it's like, okay, I want to redefine what my sexuality is for me. And in order to do that, sometimes we need to step back a little and look into the other opposing side of things. And that's exactly what you did. You went back into your senses, into your bodily senses
Mm.
through Qigong, through movement, through breath, through somatic practice. And from that, you come, and it's the same thing when you talk about masculine and feminine. You go into the unconsciousness, you gain new insights, expansion, fluidity, new ways of thinking. And then the masculine draws you back out. Okay, how do we put this into practice? How do we
Exactly.
integrate this and embody it? And that's really cool journey. I
Mm.
didn't realize that you'd practiced all that. That's really cool.
No,
Because I'd
I've
heard you
practiced
speak
that.
about the over sexualized man, but I hadn't known you'd had that journey for yourself
Yeah,
to
it's
have
only
it.
been in the last
Yeah.
3 years since I started the podcast. I interviewed a guy called Nakula
Mm-hmm.
Das talking about semen retention, no fap, all the things. I was like, I
Mm-hmm.
need to adapt this. And I'd already turned my
Yeah.
back on, like, I went celibate for 3 years, didn't have sex for 3 years,
Mm-hmm.
focused
Yeah,
purely
I
on,
think I went through a 1 year and 11 months period as well myself.
hmm,
Yeah.
mine just lasted a bit longer, but I needed to
Mm.
purify my energy and my system and figure out who I was and what I wanted and connect with myself, right? So
Yeah.
I just
Yeah.
I call it the caveman phase of my life.
Yeah.
Hid
Was
myself from
that an
society.
intentional choice that like a goal that you had set, or did it kind of just naturally
People
evolve
that know my
intuitively?
journey, Shan, will, well, a lot of people do know my journey, but I went and saw a kinesiologist who was more than that, energy healer, all the things, and
Yeah.
I learnt what sex was in that session. It was like a 4 hour session. I
Mm.
learnt what sex was, and I was like, I need to turn away from this. I need to give up this
Mm.
lifestyle.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I didn't like my all my programming and stuff around sex was just through porn. So it's like I was doing it like them and lasting like, 30 seconds, and then it's like I just thought that was
Mm-hmm.
normal. It's like, oh no. Breathe and
Yeah.
relax and slow down and
Yeah.
and then actually give pleasure and all those. So I learned all those things and
Mm-hmm.
put that into practice. I was like, oh my God, totally
Mm-hmm.
different to how I was doing it 6 years ago.
Yeah.
Or even like,
Living through the senses while going through the act of
mm,
sex,
and
the
just taking the
sensuality, the
time and slowing
sexuality.
down. Like there's an awesome podcast
Yeah.
I did with a guy in America called Jackson Hightower, who's a sex and relationships and performance men's coach, and
Mm.
he talks a lot about all this stuff too. And even just like opening up the hips, purely like doing like hip
Mm-hmm.
openers and doing all these like bodily stretches can really help with that as well. And it's
Yeah.
just there's so much that you can do. You can get overwhelmed in it, but it's just like start where you are, use what you have, and do what you can. But
Mm-hmm.
it's like just knowing that start. And for me, it's like I know the guy I can be, and I know the path. It's like I didn't like it's like every insight I get, it's like, okay, this is the new evolution. This is the next step.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's so interesting too, isn't it? How quickly we revert to, in the initial phases of having something new come up for us,
Yeah, you're
we
like, I want to be
revert
that
to
guy
like the
straight away.
shame.
Yep.
Yeah, but like we revert to the shame of like, oh my God, how did I not know this already? But it's like that's the whole point of something new.
That sums up
It's
my
new.
very
You
first three
couldn't
months of
see what you
awakening.
hadn't known. Yeah. Yeah. And
My first three
again, that's
months
that
of
phase.
my first 3 months of
Yeah.
awakening was pretty much, Shan. It was why didn't I know this 4 years ago? Why didn't
Yep.
I know this?
Yep.
Why didn't I do this earlier? It's like, well,
Hmm.
you know.
How could you have known if you didn't know?
Exactly. Or, I also sat in the I want to be that guy now. So I did that session with
Yeah.
that kinesiologist and I was like walking out of there going, oh, I'm just going to be a master at all this stuff. It's like we got to walk the
Yeah.
path, bro. Can't just
Exactly.
can't just
Awareness is the first thing, but you can't just teleport magically there. Yeah.
I had that humbling a few times
Hmm.
in my
Oh, we all
journey.
do.
Yeah.
Yeah. We all just want to be there.
But you sort of
And
look
then like,
back
yeah.
and you go, look how far you've come. Like I was as skinny as a rake. I was just
Mm,
and then you look back and you go far out. You start going to the gym, you start
yeah.
looking better. My very first
Hmm.
podcast was a car crash. It's like,
Mm,
you can just sort of look back and go, look how far you've come and be grateful for
yeah.
that. You know, there's
That
still
growth.
versions of me that I want to be better, but it's like, well, look how far you've come. You're already better.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah. It's like we forget just how much we've evolved because we're so future focused.
Yeah.
We're so future focused on like what's the next thing, what's the next thing, not stopping to appreciate and enjoy, just like what we were talking about in a sexual experience.
Mm.
Not stopping to enjoy, just future focused on the end goal.
Yeah, and I
And
was
that's
very
what porn
selfish
teaches you.
too. I was
Yeah.
very selfish in the bedroom. That came from porn too. I came from just that
Hmm.
culture around it. I was
Yeah.
running like I feel like a lot of young men use it to run away. I use it to run away from a lot of things, but I use the woman to
Yeah.
do my thing and see you later. It's like she's like, "What about me?"
Yeah.
I'm like, "Well, I'm done, so good night," or
Mm.
I'm getting up and going. It's like,
Hmm.
it's like you sort of I sort of got out of that mindset.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's like, it's interesting when you talk about like the effect that having porn from such a young age has had on you as a man.
It
Because
has.
for me as a woman, I'm looking back on having that exposure throughout my teens. For me, I was a teen when I started looking at that stuff. And the effect that had on me was like it taught me to be the submissive, to provide pleasure and
Mm,
to almost feel guilty in accepting pleasure. It's the
yeah.
opposite. It's like, oh, okay, well, he's done, so that's all right then. You know, job done.
Yeah.
Like, it's like it's enabling the whole pattern
Yeah.
on both ends. And then when I started a romantic relationship with my current partner, it was so weird, so alienating, and a massive growth period for me because he was coming in with this energy of like, I don't care about me. I just want to make sure you're all good. And I'm just like, hang on, but like I need to make sure you're all good. So then we had this balance, this rebalancing of like defining what that was for us both. It's like, oh, okay. We both need to have an element where we can step back, slow down, and enjoy.
Correct.
Because I was taught to be the one who makes sure he enjoys himself. And he was taught the one to, for him, it was either he switches off completely, nothing's going on for him, and he's just focused on me, or it's like 30 seconds in and out,
No, I was like that.
at the start. And so then there was like the extremes for him and the extremes for me. And then we had to come into, obviously it's been 6 years. We came into a really good balance of like, okay, let's slow down. And it's usually me, the one who goes, let's slow down.
Mm.
But when we do, it's great. And it's
Mm.
it's redefined what sexuality is for both me and my partner. And I feel like, you know, you even mentioned it with Sabrina Carpenter, and I've noticed you've put a few like posts over the last couple of months about how women are taught growing up as teens that that's normal.
Hmm.
Even in porn, that's normal. That's how women should be. You just kind of starfish and let the guy do what he's gonna do. So
Yeah.
that sounds joyful.
No,
Like,
but it's true.
where's your pleasure as a woman? Like the innocence of enjoying yourself during sex. That's where is that?
Yeah, some women
You
say
know?
they can't come either. It's like you can, you just believe you can't because you were
Mm-hmm.
told that you can't. You've
Mm-hmm.
been conditioned that you can't, but
Mm-hmm.
you can do a lot of cool shit with that down there.
I know. Well,
It's
we
the
could go
same as the
into some
men. Like,
experiences there.
we don't
Yeah.
have to just give away our seed to the porn
Mm-hmm.
star or the beautiful woman shaking it all on Instagram or whatever you're
Yeah.
using. You can harness that energy
Yeah.
and use that to build the body that you want in the gym. You can use that extra energy to build a business. You
Yes.
can use that extra energy to do a lot
Yeah.
of cool shit. And
Yeah.
it's like you don't have to just give away that seed. And, for me,
Yeah.
I felt extremely tired and I started holding onto the seed and then I'd get rid of it and go, fuck, my next
Mm-hmm.
3 days were like a fucking shit show.
Yeah.
I'm holding on to this
Yeah.
now and being selfish in that and going like, no, I'm not letting this go because this energy is so powerful.
Yeah.
But it
Yeah.
does
Yeah.
drain you.
Yeah.
But if you're
Yeah.
I've noticed that when it's in a environment where where it's like what you're talking about in the bedroom, it's like, well, I can walk away from a bedroom session, which I don't talk about my bedroom antics anymore, but here we are. I can walk away from a bedroom session, a sex session, and feel like $1 million rather than
Mm-hmm.
depleted and drained how I used to feel
Yes.
giving it away
Yeah.
unconsciously.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's funny because like some guys associate that depletion with it being good, like a positive thing. Like, oh, I'm
Yeah.
energetically drained. That was a great session, and you see it in movies, right? They're like, oh, it's like,
Conditioning.
is that a good thing?
No.
Don't you want to feel alive? Don't you want to
Yep.
feel amazing? Why is the goal to deplete
Non-ejaculatory is a
yourself?
wild thing.
Yeah,
When you can get that energy
yeah.
going up through your body and that you can walk away like Superman.
Hmm. Well, and they say sexual energy is a form of manifesting energy. It's very
Life
powerful
force
energy.
energy.
Exactly. Yeah.
And if you're
Yeah, it's
just
so cool.
giving it away in the sheets and giving it away in the
Hmm.
tissues and giving it away to the porn stars and all this thing, you're giving away a part of your
Hmm.
energy and a part of your
Yes.
power to something
Yeah.
external.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like there's it's such a tricky thing to navigate when you're going through the innocence of, virginity into adulthood, shall we say.
Hmm.
There's like the thing that women have been taught is like, it's sacred, be very careful with who you do it with. And then, like, for a lot of girls going through teen, it's like they hear that, but maybe not in the right context, because then what happens is they go the opposite way and they're like, everyone else is doing it, so I'm going to do it. Or does it really need to be that special? And then they do it, and then perhaps not right away, maybe in hindsight, years later, once they start to delve down the self awareness track, they realize, okay, maybe that didn't happen
Yeah.
the way I wanted to. And maybe every time I do open up to myself in that way, it is important to be aware of who is on the other end, who I'm opening up to. And it goes both ways too.
Mm. Like on the other
Maybe
end of
guys
the
don't consider that enough.
No, but
In
on the
general,
other end
not
of the spectrum, you've
specific
got
to,
movies
yeah.
like American Pie and Superbad and all these movies of teens trying to get their of teen boys
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
trying to get their first one in. I had that conditioning. I
Yep.
was
Yep.
my and my mates set a challenge, by the time we're 18, let's make it happen. And I was the last one. And I felt that guilt and that
Yeah.
shame. And the tribe's not going to
Yeah.
accept me because I haven't done the deed yet. That's all conditioning from the movies. Look at Superbad. Look at American Pie. There's hundreds of them.
Yep.
of
Yeah.
these teen boys trying to make it happen.
Yeah. 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 That's exactly right.
Mm,
That's another example of the brother wound. I won't be
mm,
accepted if I'm not fitting in this way.
hmm
When really the most admirable thing for a self-aware woman, the woman you want to attract, is someone who can stand their ground and be themselves, and
Love that.
also be that self-aware that it shows a strength, not
Yeah,
a
and just
weakness.
making the man work for it. I loved
Mm,
working for it
hmm.
from a man's perspective.
Yeah.
Love the challenge and love the hunt.
Yeah.
That's encoded in our DNA. That goes
That's
back
what I was gonna say. Yeah,
hundreds of
hunter
years.
gatherer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, Shan, awesome conversation. We could talk for the next 2 hours and make this like a
We
four-part
could.
podcast, but I think we've gone long enough. To circle
Hmm.
it all back, to sum it up, what would be your advice to someone out there listening and watching now to, I guess, take their first step? They're like,
First step
because they're probably feeling overwhelmed. Like there's a lot of
towards
work to do in a lot of areas of life. So it's like, well,
right.
what can they sort of take away from this to implement right away?
Mm. One simple step is dropping into your body.
Yes.
Yeah. I know this is like a bias of mine because I work in the somatic embodiment realms, but it really is a simple way of dropping into your senses, coming into the body through movement and action, which is the masculine, but also going into like giving your mind and your consciousness the backseat so that you can go into the unconscious as well. It's that dynamic, that dance between masculine and feminine. And it's in such a simple way. Drop into your body, whether it's going to be breath work, whatever works for you too. Explore, figure out what works for you. Don't rush it. Dropping
Yeah,
into your
rush.
body is all about the senses, creating space for the senses to experience. You set the pace. And if you feel this urgency and rush, try something else because it's not meant to feel that way when you drop into the body. You're not meant to feel a sense of urgency or rush. Find something that works for you because for some people, breath work isn't it. For some people, guided meditation isn't it. For some people, yoga isn't it. You know, find what's it. Yeah.
Mhm. Love that.
And
What
just
a good
start
way to
small.
finish.
Yeah.
Yeah, start small. Love that. Shan, where can people find you?
You can find me on Instagram at somatic.body. You can find my website, which I don't know if you can link that in the show notes, but
I
it's
can.
somaticbody.com.au. And they're the two main platforms in which you can view my offerings and get to know me.
You
Yeah.
have to start a podcast, Shan.
Oh, really? I've thought about it.
Have
I
you?
have thought about it. Yeah, yeah. I do love chatting with people. I do love
Hmm.
expanding. I think podcasts are such a beautiful way of expanding your own concepts and awareness, getting other people's points of view. Yeah,
Hmm.
it's definitely something that's been playing on my
Really
mind.
awesome chat, and I'm keen for you to move back to Australia and back to the coast, and we can catch up in person and
Yes,
have a
that sounds really good.
in-person conversation with all this juicy stuff, and circle back for part two.
Sounds amazing. It's
Hmm.
been a great time. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for finding me. If you've loved the podcast with Shan, please reach out to her, reach out to me, and let us know what you think and all the things. And that will be probably it for now. So, Shan, thank you for giving your time to the platform today. I know my audience and my listeners and viewers will get a lot from this conversation. They probably learn a bit more about me as well today. It's things I've shared in here that I
Mm.
don't usually share, which I might actually start sharing a bit more of. So yeah, Shan, thank you so much again, and we'll circle back once you're back in the country, back on the coast, and we'll make it happen again. So we'll stay in
Sounds
touch.
amazing.
For everyone listening and watching, thank you so much. I'll chat to you all soon. There's some awesome guests in the can, so get ready for a big end of 2025. Talk to you all soon. Cheers.